Hi, this is Ren.
This is Casey.
And this is All Walks of Film. Today we are talking about the reception from fans to the Rotten Tomatoes criticism of Suicide Squad.
Yeah, I know that you're a pretty firm believer in Rotten Tomatoes. I don't give a shit about Rotten Tomatoes at all.
To be fair, I think Rotten Tomatoes is a good site to go on to when you're not really sure about a film and you want to see what the general reception of the film is. Though I will say that there are many films on Rotten Tomatoes that are amazing films that are like close to like the 40, 50, 60% rate.
Well, and also the other way around. Like, the only reason I went to go see It Follows was because you were insistent on it, and you were insistent on it because you were like, oh, but it's got 98% on Rotten Tomatoes. People are saying it's the best horror film this year, like, the best horror film in the past 10 years, and we had just seen The Babadook, and I'm like, this shit is not better than The Babadook, but we went to go see it, and it was a piece of crap. It was not 98%. It was not Terminators 2 level good, or Fury Road level good. Fuck that.
Yeah, and the movie couldn't even follow the rules that it set up.
Well, it was just a stupid movie anyway, but at best, that might have been a mediocre film. So that was one where, and that wasn't like a disconnect between the critics and the audience. That was just ridiculous, which is why I never really cared about Rotten Tomatoes. But then this came up again during Batman v Superman, where they were trying to spin this narrative of, oh, well, this is just another example of critics being haters and audiences liking it, like Transformers. Because this happened with Transformers even. There was some shit about how, like, oh, film people are so pretentious that because they don't like Transformers. Like, Transformers gets so much money and so many people go see it, and yet it wins almost, like, it's never nominated for an Oscar. It's like, why would it be nominated for an Oscar? Are you freaking kidding me?
And just because a movie does well in the box office does not mean it's good. A lot of people will watch crappy movies just because they see an advertisement of it, or, more importantly, it's a known property.
Or they get roped in to go seeing it with other people. That happens a lot with, like, franchise movies. You know, a whole family will get together and go see it, even though, like, a lot of people might not want to.
So let's read the Change.org petition to stop Rotten Tomatoes. Yeah.
This is ridiculous. Come on, guys. I mean, I don't even care about Rotten Tomatoes, but, like, dude, just leave it alone.
There is a disconnect between critics and audiences.
That's why there's two separate scores.
You may enjoy a movie regardless what the critics say about it.
But we must get the people to know that the criticism, not the measure of the quality of movies. So they left out an is in the middle there. It's just the opinions of the critics. Well, if you don't give a shit about what the critics have to say, that's fine. That's why there's an audience member score and a critic score. So then if you're just like, oh, well, will I like it? And, like, will my friends like it? There's a score for that. So what's your complaint? Or if you really don't give a shit about what the critics have to say, don't look on Rotten Tomatoes. Just don't give a shit. If you want to go see it and you want to like it, go watch it and like it. And don't give a shit what anyone has to say about it. It's not that hard. Was that the entire thing?
Yeah.
That was the whole petition? How many people have signed it? Oh my god.
20,825 right now.
Oh my god. Why?
This might not be the...
What the fuck is that, too? It says, sign the petition. This petition will be delivered to the audiences. What does that even mean?
I don't know.
Are you sure that this isn't some kind of, like, joke or someone's trolling? Because, like, what would you even do with that?
It's possible.
Yeah. I think people might have been taking that shit way too seriously.
Okay, so Slash Film just came out with an article called David Ayer Reacts to Suicide Squad Reviews. Fans do the same with a Rotten Tomatoes petition. So, starting off with, the first Suicide Squad reviews hit the web yesterday, and yesterday was on August 2nd.
Yeah.
When the review embargo was
lifted, and this was right before the actual movie came out.
And while there was praise for the performances from Will Smith, Margot Robbie, and Viola Davis, and even Jai Courtney...
Which definitely those actors all did a really fine job. Even though I hated the movie for a lot of reasons, their acting was all great.
There was a lot of criticism in other areas. The consensus was, while the characters were great and brought a lot of fun to the table, they're unfortunately part of a movie that doesn't use them to their full potential, mostly due to a lackluster narrative and a weak villain to motivate them.
I mean, I think that they're a little too nice to the characters. There were 2 decent characters in a movie ensemble of 11. But yeah, I think that that's fair. That's more than fair.
Now David Ayer has responded to the first wave of Suicide Squad reviews, and so have a group of fans who haven't seen the movie yet, but won't miss this opportunity to be enraged and overreact. First up, here's David Ayer's Suicide Squad reviews reaction that he posted to Twitter yesterday. Prefiero morir de pie que vivir de rodillas, Emmanuel Zapata. Which translated, and I'm sorry about my Spanish, for those of you who don't speak Spanish, the quote translates to, "It is better to die on your feet than live on your knees." And David Ayer explained exactly what he meant by that as well. Zapata quote is of my saying, "I love the movie and believe in it. Made it for the fans. Best experience of my life."
Question mark, question mark? He made this for the fans that didn't really give a shit about the characters. Like, what, that almost makes me dislike it a little bit more. It's a little bit like when you hear Zack Snyder say that Sucker Punch was his, like, feminist movie. You know, like, he made 300 for all the men, so he made Suicide Squad for all the women.
Yeah, also...
It's a little bit like that, where you're like, oh my god, really?
Much respect to David Ayer for standing by his movie, even in the wake of bad reviews. That's exactly what a respectable artist should do. Ayer could have easily thrown someone under the bus or complained about the studio system, which may have had a hand in the problems critics say the movie has.
Mm-hmm.
But he stands by the movie without any excuses. And I will agree, that is respectable. You made something, you stand by it. You could admit that, oh, it has flaws or whatever, but that's still your shit. You own it, or you try to point the finger at somebody else. And
you could have easily done that with this movie. You could have been like, I know I'm the director, but like, this was Zack Snyder's movie, and that's why it sucks. And nobody would have a problem believing that either.
Yeah, Josh Trank did that with Fantastic Four.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Yeah,
well,
he shit on the studio system and was like, oh, well, my movie was this and this, and then...
But that happens so much right now, because for a while I was kind of boggled by this whole thing that's happening where Hollywood studio pitches a movie and they're like, cool, who are we going to get to direct it? And they give like this huge franchise film to a tiny director who's done like a movie or 2, and they're like, hey, you can have this. And for a while I was like, why do you do that? They keep sucking. You should get like more experienced directors. And then I started theorizing with some other people that the reason why is they get a little known director who can basically just be the face, and they can pull his strings and make them do whatever they want to do because they're paying for it.
Yeah, and it's essentially not their film, it's the studio's film.
Yeah, which is why I think we're kind of moving into an age where the films are more about the producers than the directors. I really think that's true. And especially for Suicide Squad, where this has Zack Snyder's fingerprints all over it. This has so much signature Snyderisms throughout the film. What with the slow motion, the crappy edits, the rampant fucking sexism, and, you know, using all women as sexual objects, you know, this lack of character development and like really half-ass narrative. Like, what's a good narrative in a Zack Snyder film that isn't Watchmen, where like you had that comic to draw from? Like, what's a good narrative in a Zack Snyder film?
300, the Persians coming in on Greece, and
I mean, yeah,
the Spartans fighting back.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't seen Shaun of the Dead, and that's pretty much the only Zack Snyder film I haven't seen.
Dawn of the Dead.
Dawn of the Dead, sorry. What did I say?
Shaun.
No. Dawn of the Dead. I haven't seen Dawn of the Dead, and that's like pretty much the only Zack Snyder film I haven't seen.
It's good.
Yeah, that's what I've heard, and that's why
it's
like,
not
I
better
can't
than
judge
the original,
one.
but like
No.
it's a decent remake. It doesn't try to walk the same path as the original. Like it does its own film, and I appreciate it for that.
Yeah, but I haven't seen it, and besides that one, I would say 300 is his only decent film. I really think so, because if you look at his other films, most notably Sucker Punch and Batman v Superman, the narrative is so convoluted, and it's all over the fucking place, and it doesn't make sense, and it'll introduce things that won't go anywhere, which is really what happened in Suicide Squad. Yeah,
with Sucker Punch, I didn't know what reality was what. I mean, it was like they would go to like fantasy dreamland, but there would also be the whole like burlesque thing, and then that was a fantasy too. And then I just got to the point where it's like, well, is this representative of anything? I don't even fucking know. I still don't know, even after watching the movie.
I'm pretty sure that from a narrative perspective, if we were going to break it down into one linear plot, the idea is this girl who's been abused by her stepfather was put into an insane asylum, actually was crazy, not just put there because he needed to get rid of her, like you think at the beginning of the film. She actually was crazy and would have these delusions. In order to cope with the way she was living in the asylum, she would cope by pretending that she was at this like burlesque show where she also had to like fuck people, and she would use that to like that hardship in her fantasy life to cope with it. But she knows deep down that that's fucked up, so she has another fantasy as well, where it's like all more fantastical and she can kick butt. Even as I'm saying all that, what the fuck does that even mean? Why? That's ridiculous. You don't need like this fucking Inception fantasy inside of fantasy for some crazy chick who may or may not be crazy, who may or may not be doing things in real life, and who still has no personality besides just wearing skimpy clothes.
Yeah, and the author of this article said, in response to that, however, I still take issue with the fact that he uses the line, made it for the fans, which implies that the critics aren't fans who like the movies.
That is pretty interesting, and I like the fact that they pointed that out.
Or maybe, more specifically, comic book movies. Maybe he's just saying that he didn't make it specifically for Suicide Squad fans, but that would mean that general audiences wouldn't enjoy it as much either.
Yeah.
Which, yeah, like, who is this marketed for? Because it's
not marketed for fans of the comic books. It's not marketed for fans.
To be fair, I actually haven't read the Suicide Squad comics, so
no, but if you know anything about the Joker from any iteration, you're not gonna like this movie. If you like any iteration from the Adam West to the comic books to the animated series to the more recent comic books to the Heath Ledger impersonation, you're not gonna like this.
I could see it if like you're really a huge fan of like hip hop culture or something like that, which this movie was like everybody had to be from the hood, the street. It was like they grabbed a whole bunch of people from BET and were like, we want to make a Suicide Squad movie, but we want it to be like amped up to, you know, match up this like hip hop urban culture, which, you know, if you're going to do that, why not have more black people in the fucking movie?
Well, I think if you're going to do that, this film feels really inauthentic in that way. It feels like very much like a marketing ploy that was tacked on. It doesn't feel like that comes from anywhere.
Yeah, and all I got to say is Vanilla Ice did it better.
Oh my god. I wouldn't go that far. I would not go that far.
Then the Joker? I'll take maybe. Ice Baby over anything that this movie had to offer.
Not Ice Baby. Go Ninja, go Ninja, go! Go Ninja, go Ninja, go!
Okay, that's a good song. Well, it's a guilty pleasure song for me. So.
Well, it was in the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles 2 movie. Like, you kind of halfway like it just because the Turtles were involved, you know? I'm sorry. But if I'm gonna pick the very best of Vanilla Ice ever, it was just him in that movie. That's it. But yeah, I would say Vanilla Ice in that movie is better than Jared Leto in this one. But yeah, like you were saying, this isn't really meant for comic book fans or a general audience as much, I would think. It seems to only be marketed towards people who liked Batman v Superman and other DCU movies, which is very, very, very tiny.
Yeah, and especially with the critical reception and the possibility that this movie might bomb this weekend, I think it might do well the first couple days. We didn't have an insanely packed theater. It was definitely more full than Ghostbusters, but we did see it on a Friday.
Yeah, we did see it in the middle of the day on a Friday, and it was fuller than Ghostbusters, but there was not very much reaction from the theater. There was one couple in the theater who thought it was fun, and that seemed to be it. It did not really seem to be that funny. It didn't seem to be that enjoyable. Nobody was, like, whooping and hollering or laughing or gasping or whatever. Like, when we went to go see Hardcore Henry, people were into it. Oh my god. And that movie had a terrible plot, but that movie was fun. And people were reeling into it. And this movie just... If it wasn't for the actual movie playing, you could have heard a pin drop, I swear.
Either way, there are already some fans who are quickly coming to the defense of Suicide Squad, even though 99% of them haven't seen the movie yet. In fact, one of the group's fans has decided to take action by creating a petition on change.org to have the movie review aggregator website Rotten Tomatoes shut down after Suicide Squad landed an unfavorable 33% at the time of this writing. However, the film also has a 5 out of 10 rating, which paints a more accurate picture of critical reception, much as with Batman v Superman. Anyway, their explanation as to why, straight from the petition page. We need this site shut down because its critics always give the DC Extended Universe movies unjust, bad reviews like Batman v Superman, Dawn of Justice 2016, Suicide Squad 2016, and that affects people's opinion, even if it's really great movies.
Okay, we need to break a lot of this shit down because A, they have 2 examples. All the DCEU Extended Universe movies, all 2 of them have...
Yeah, and they don't even include Man of Steel.
They don't even include Man of Steel. Everyone forgot about that. But, oh my god, can you, like, look over it one time? Because we need this site to be shut down because it is critics, because that is a contraction, with its and critics both capitalized for no reason. It's critics always give the DC Extended Universe the one part that they actually did correctly, spelling and capitalization wise.
Okay, just out of curiosity,
Movies.
Does change.org allow you to change like something after you've written it?
I don't know if they allow you to edit it. I'm not sure.
Okay, because I've made that mistake before.
This many? This is ridiculous. Movies, unjust, bad reviews. And unjust is lowercase, but bad reviews is capitalized. Like, and then it gives 2 examples where it's almost right, but the dates need to be in parentheses. Okay. Then it says, and that affects with a capital A, which is wrong both for being capital letter and for being an A, people's opinion, even if it is a really great movies. A
really great movies. What the fuck?
So, again, this is another example where I'm like, this is a prank. This is either a prank or this is like a 7-year-old who got really pissed off.
I don't know if you're familiar with the David Pakman show, but they have a section called Hatred Mail. And it's...
Yeah, I'm familiar.
Yeah, it's like all these really like insulting criticism of him, but like...
He just laughs it off.
And they're all like improper grammar. And I know sometimes when I speak, I use improper grammar and I just move on.
Does to a certain extent, but like, look at this. This is something that should be on, why would you put that on the internet? Just because Rob Dyke would have fun trying to say everything as poorly as it's written.
Yeah. It seems rather convenient that the only 2 movies that inspired this call for Rotten Tomatoes to be shut down are the 2 recent DC Comics movies that were received poorly by a variety of outlets. So this doesn't appear to be about all the instances in which a mob of fans disagrees with what the presumed hive mind of critics thinks, but just these 2 examples. But that's not even the worst part. This petition seems to misunderstand how Rotten Tomatoes work on a fundamental level. It's not Rotten Tomatoes as a single entity giving movies reviews. It's an aggregation of movie reviews by individual critics that use a percentage of provided surface-level representation of how many good reviews there are out there. shutting down this website won't change how critics react to the movies they don't like.
Yeah, exactly. And this isn't even an aggregation of reviews that are posted directly to Rotten Tomatoes. This is an aggregation of critical reviews from many different outlets. And it really does sort of gloss over a lot of the specifics, or to a certain extent, even if there were reviews, like, I actually had a buddy who was complaining that Ghostbusters has so much higher a percentage on Rotten Tomatoes than Suicide Squad. And I think a part of the reason is because there were all of those articles that didn't talk about the movie at all, but were like, girl power, feminism, you need to go support this movie opening weekend if you believe in the rights of women, yada, yada, yada. There was even a New York Times article that was about that didn't address the movie at all. It was talking about the hype around it. And there was article after article after article after article like this. And those are probably counted as positive reviews, even though they aren't reviews at all.
Right, and Ghostbusters had a political statement. Even though I hate the political statement, I think that most of its positive reception is because of its political statement. Oh, well, we have to have women heroes, even though they couldn't, actually
make them heroes or intelligent or interesting or, characters. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, the bulk of the Hunger Games had several women, and it was better. I mean, granted, I wasn't a big fan of the last film, but there were several women characters, and they worked together and all that kind of stuff. It was a mixture of men and women, which honestly feels more feminist than what Ghostbusters is.
It does. I think one of the best takes on feminism in a film really is in Fury Road, and it's not the part where Furiosa is more badass than Max, and it's not the part, even though I like that, and it's not the part with the Volvolini, even though I like that too. It's the part where they all decide as a collective that the men and the women are going to get, from all these different backgrounds of different forms of societal oppression, are going to get together and collectively as a full group decide the best way to move forward. And that is when they kick the most butt and they make the most change. I think that is the best message in the film. And I think that there needs to be more of that in media. Instead of focusing on this gender divide or racial divide, there needs to be more of a everybody gets together and we're all cool. That's it. That's how simple it is.
Yeah.
Let's just all be cool.
And this next point I really like. At the same time, if you're using Rotten Tomatoes percentage rating as the sole basis for whether a movie is good, then you're using the website wrong. Just take it from director Scott Derrickson, who just posted this to Twitter yesterday. If you look at Rotten Tomatoes scores without reading selected reviews that you respect, you're doing it wrong. You and cinema deserve better. Which I think is a great point, because there are some times where Rotten review scores are rotten, but if you actually read the review, there are merits to the film that the reviewer expresses. But if you just go onto the website and look, oh, what's the score? Go out and see the movie. I've made that mistake before. Many other people have made that mistake before. I mean, that's the general reception on how audiences view Rotten Tomatoes, and it's wrong.
I agree.
And I think that Rotten Tomatoes, after this reception, should make a public statement about what their website is. Not because they have to, but just to essentially
clarify things so people understand. Yeah. I mean, this would be exactly like if you were just like, oh, Gene Siskel and Roger Ebert give this movie a thumbs up or a thumbs down, and you didn't watch their review. What would be the point of that? I mean, yeah, you would just know a general, oh, it's generally okay, or it's generally dislikable, but even though Rotten Tomatoes is a little bit better because there's at least more of a scale to it, yeah, if you don't really know how or why, then there's no point to it. But also, you don't really need a reviewer or a percentage to tell you whether or not you need to go see the movie. I mean, if you want to see it, and if you don't want to see it, then that's not going to change your opinion. If you're not sure, maybe it'll convince you to go see it or not see it, or to give it a chance or not give it a chance. But for something as overly hyped and really divisive as Suicide Squad, I don't know that a Rotten Tomatoes score really makes that much of a difference to people who are going to go see it, or to people who will like it, or people who won't go see it and people who won't like it.
All right, and one thing I have to say time and time and time again is reviews are subjective. Sometimes your own personal baggage can affect how you see a movie. Like, let's say that you had a bad day or like something's bothering you. That will distract you from watching the movie. Or sometimes you go into the movie with preconceived notions of what the movie is, and sometimes that can be good, sometimes that can be bad, but that still affects your movie experience because, we can't just go to a movie with a blank slate.
Right, exactly. Because if you did, you would be too.
This comes from a director who has received varying reviews from critics for his movies like Deliver Us from Evil, Sinister, The Exorcism of Emily Rose, and the remake of The Day the Earth Stood Still, each with a variety of different ratings on Rotten Tomatoes. Derrickson will soon find himself under the microscope of film critics and comic book fans alike since he directed this fall's Marvel Studios release, Doctor Strange. Based on that filmography, I am very skeptical of the film now.
You like the way that the trailers looked, though.
I did like the way that the trailers looked. I also think that The Exorcism of Emily Rose was a decent film.
Mm-hmm.
I liked how the film was ambiguous about its conclusion. It was almost the antithesis of what The Exorcist was.
Okay. For me, with Doctor Strange, I feel nothing. I don't feel compelled to see it because it's a Marvel film, because there's just too damn many, and I'm not going to catch up. I don't feel compelled to see it based on the trailers. There's just nothing doing it for me. I have never had any experience with the source material, so I don't really know. And the director, I haven't seen any of his films, so I don't know. And the only thing I really have a strong feeling on is I really hate Benedict Cumberbatch's stupid face.
Okay, that is a minority opinion because most people like Benedict Cumberbatch.
Yeah, that is just my opinion on my little table of one.
Well, yeah, and I disagree with you fully on Benedict Cumberbatch, I
just think he's okay. He's never done that much for me, and he's everywhere. I just get sick of seeing him. I don't even hate him or anything. He's just one of those people that I don't care about at all, and he's everywhere. That's it.
Okay, we'll agree to disagree with that one there.
Well, I saw an episode of Sherlock and it didn't do much for me. I saw him as Khan and his performance was okay. I wasn't really blown away by it or anything, and I was mostly just mad at the casting, which is not his fault. He got casted that way. That's not his fault. But that's about it.
These fans don't really have a problem with Rotten Tomatoes. They have a problem with movie critics who dislike the movies that they hope to love.
Again, going back to Transformers, we had the same thing, and that didn't have anything to do with Rotten Tomatoes as a website. That just had to do with, the stupid pretentious critics don't like my movies. They're my favorite movies.
But guess what? That's perfectly fine. You can completely disagree with anything a film critic says because their opinion is not meant to be definitive or objective.
Yep. And I have the same experience with movies I like Tree of Life or a Serbian film especially. Critics hate a Serbian film so much. And I really feel like when I see a lot of critics review that movie that they just don't get it. I really think that. I really think they just don't understand because they're like, oh, it's gory and it's just shocking for the sake of being shocking, so it's gross and I don't like it.
I find it amusing that they're oftentimes the same critics that will go to bat for Salo or the 120 Days of Sodom.
Yeah. Don't like Serbian film. And it's like, if you can deal with that, why can't you deal with this one? Really? I don't get it. But, I'm not going to let that critic or the general dislike for those movies, especially Tree of Life, I think is amazing. And everyone's just like, oh, but it's just tree porn. No, it's not. You don't get it. But that's okay. And it's not, they don't get it because they're stupid. They don't get it because that's not something that relates to their personal experience. That's okay. There's just not a connection there.
But just keep in mind, you don't have a leg to stand on if you're attempting to defend a movie you haven't seen or lashing out insultingly at critics because they dislike a movie that you enjoy. Different strokes for different folks and all that jazz.
You had to say it. You said the line that you hate so much.
I was quoting the article.
You were quoting the article.
I mean, I was reading the article.
You should have sung it. Do it.
No, I'm not.
Do it.
I'm not going to do it.
Come on. It'll be funny.
I'm not going to do it. I'm going to cut all this out.
No. Come on, it'll be funny.
And all that jazz. All right, so yeah, I've noticed there are certain films that we've disagreed with our viewers on, and yeah, I see the dislike buttons. I mean, unless our review was bad, let us know. But my assumption is usually the people who angrily hit that dislike button are disliking us because we're not serving their echo chamber of, hey, I like the movie. I want to listen to other people who like the movie like I did.
Yeah, and I mean, that really just depends on who you are. Like, I usually try to, if there's a movie that I like or dislike, I usually try to watch at least a couple reviews on each side if I can. Sometimes you can't. Sometimes you just can't find somebody on both sides. But that I don't feel like that happens that often. But you need to be challenged. If you don't like something, talk to someone who likes it. And maybe you'll see, oh, that's why. Like, maybe you can either understand why other people like it, or maybe it'll change your opinion about the movie.
So, a couple years ago, Dawn of the Planet of the Apes came out. And I absolutely love the movie. And I listened to a podcast where they essentially said the movie was terrible, the acting was terrible, the ape acting was terrible. And I was just like, you're going to have to be a little bit more specific. I wasn't like, rage quit, fuck you, blah, blah, blah. But it was like, okay, you didn't back up your argument. Like,
yeah, that gets frustrating. Like, we were just watching a video where they were bashing on the 1976 King Kong. And they were like, it's terrible, it's horrible, lots of adjectives with no real example. And there were 3 examples like from the film that they gave, and all 3 were about this one character.
And I understand
I believe that you just don't like this one character and that ruined the entire movie for you, and that sucks for you, but that doesn't make it a shitty movie.
Yeah, and I understand that like the 1976 King Kong isn't a very well-received film, but I think there are merits to the film that a lot of people.
Good film.
Yeah,
but yeah, you just need to give something more specific other than, oh, but it's terrible. Oh, and it sucks. And it's terrible. And fuck that movie.
Film critics do not have a hive mind, and each has their own different tastes and experiences that will change how they feel about movies of all kinds.
Hear, hear.
It's up to you as an individual to determine which critics have tastes that line up with yours, so you know which ones you will trust more often than not.
Mm-hmm. And that's going to change from person to person as well.
Yeah, I mean, there are some people that will more align with, more like mainstream films, and there are some critics that have a bias towards more independent films and anything that has too much action, too much, stuff.
That's definitely true.
Yeah.
And there are some people who are really, 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 really biased. Like, there are certain reviewers where they only like 1 or 2 kinds of films, period. But if you also only like those same 1 or 2 kinds of films, you can take what they're saying and that'll apply to you, but that might not apply to your buddy.
If this sounds familiar, it's because we went through this same debacle with Batman v Superman: Dawn of Justice. Yep. I recommend going back and reading what we had to say about this exact scenario from back in March.
All the way back in March of this year.
So I'll provide a link to that as well.
Okay.
In the description below. So also I wanted to bring up that the cast of the Suicide Squad went to bat to defend the film, which is usually what cast members do because their contract requires them to. Unless you're Shia LaBeouf, who will, or Robert Pattinson, who will shit on the
Fox.
movie. Yeah, pretty much anybody working on Transformers.
Yeah,
will shit on the movie because they don't give a fuck.
Yeah.
But like a lot of times, cast members will come out and defend the film for a period of time, and then like a year or 2 later, they'll come out and be like, hey, this is actually what I thought about the film. So we might have that happen with Suicide Squad. Or it's possible that they might have seen a different cut of the film.
That's possible too, yeah. And I know that with the reviews, a lot of people who did early reviews were given a surprise screening of an unfinished product for Suicide Squad.
Okay, and these were the people giving it a standing ovation or whatever?
No.
Okay.
I would not say that, no. There was one review I read where they were in a surprise screening, and at a surprise screening, you don't know what you're going to see. and they said that when it was announced that it was going to be Suicide Squad, everybody in the audience lost their shit. They were freaking out because they were so excited. And then at the end of the film, about half the theater clapped politely, and that was the reception.
I think that's a fair reception for that film.
Yeah.
I wouldn't give it a clap, but...
We didn't give it a clap at all. We just sat there and were bitching about how much it sucked while everyone left the theater. Because that's what we do. We're total, how do you say it? We're buzzkills sometimes at the movies.
But other times we'll be like rooting on a movie and like other people will just be like, this movie sucks or whatever.
Yeah.
So that happens.
I don't know. I think one of my favorites was when we went to go see The Lobster. And there were those two older ladies that were in the row in front of us. And they were really into the movie, except for they didn't understand what electronica was. Like, as a musical genre. They were very confused by that. But other than that, they were having the time of their life watching that movie. It was so entertaining.
Yeah. So, all right. This article is from Reuters. I am not familiar with this website, but here's what they have to say. The cast of the new anti-hero movie Suicide Squad defended the film on Wednesday from scathing reviews, saying it was for the fans to decide if it does justice to the DC characters it's based on. Spoiler alert, it doesn't.
I will say that from my understanding of Suicide Squad, this was not nearly as hardcore as the comics, and I could be very wrong about that, but from clips and different things that I've seen, it really was not hardcore enough.
The critics have been absolutely horrific. They're really, really horrible. You know, I just don't think they like superhero movies. Cara Devine, who plays the Enchantress, told Reuters at the film's London premiere, well, you were the worst character in the movie, so there's that.
I mean, that can be true, though, and that's part of the thing is that critics do have to give an opinion, even if they're not familiar with it, because a lot of people who will go see Suicide Squad probably aren't familiar with the comics.
Well, that too, and also, like, critics are getting really sick and tired of superhero movies. It's one of the reasons.
Damn many!
Yeah,
oh my god!
It's also one of the reasons why Birdman won the fucking Best Picture of the Year, because it's an entire movie
bitching about superhero movies. Which, even if you were gonna do that, don't do that with, like, one of the best superhero actors that we've had. Fuck you. I like Michael Keaton's Batman so much. Fuck them.
Delavigne added, while this movie isn't perfect, it was made for the fans. Now, once again, I'm going to ask who those fans are.
Yeah. Oh, part of it too, though, is from my understanding, most of these characterizations are based on New 52, which I haven't read a lot of because I really hate what I've read. I really dislike what I've read. So maybe it is for the fans of New 52, which doesn't apply to us, but can definitely apply to some comic book fans.
Yeah, and we've actually gone past New 52 now. We're in Rebirth.
We're in Rebirth now, but New 52 is still pretty new.
Right, and the DC universe is, you know, updating themselves really rapidly now. I mean,
yeah.
And they've always done that to a certain extent, but it seems like they're doing it even faster now. But it's hard because you're trying to sell comic books, but, like, nobody knows where to start.
Yeah, that's the really hard thing about comics, is there's so many comics and so many different characters and so many different storylines, and then alternative storylines as well. And there's different variations of the same character depending on what year you are. Sometimes there's different characters of the same superhero, and
sometimes there are different comics that are different interpretations of the characters. Like, you know, Batman has like 5 different interpretations going on at once, pretty much at all times.
Yeah, so that's why a lot of times it is really hard to nail down in a live action film how to be a character, is because there's too many different iterations to pick from to really be, you know, accurate.
Suicide Squad, out in theaters on Friday, follows the rogue group of anti-heroes with special powers, Deadshot, Harley Quinn, Boomerang, Killer Croc, and El Diablo, who are held hostage by Gotham's government to use as weapons to protect the city.
That's a better summary than what I was reading yesterday. There was a summary that was like, oh, these group of bad guys have to do some good for the city in order to redeem themselves for their past.
They weren't trying to redeem themselves at all.
Everything about that summary is completely faulty.
Many critics have panned the film, with Richard Lawson of Vanity Fair calling it too shoddy and forgettable to even register as revolting. The film has a 31% rating on the review aggregator website Rotten Tomatoes. Will Smith, who plays Deadshot, commended the film's writer-director David Ayer for weaving together the stories of 10 characters and setting up a new world within Warner Brothers' expanding cinematic superhero universe. I think the people had expectations that may have been different, but I'm excited for the fans to get to vote, Smith said. Ayer added, I made the movie for real people who live in the real world.
What? What the fuck does that even mean? You're making a superhero movie. Or supervillain movie, whatever. What the fuck does that mean?
I made the movie for people who actually love movies and go and see movies. Oh, okay? What
does that mean? That makes it sound like he's seriously just trying to appeal to Transformers fans.
Yeah. Oh, I go to see the movies because they have the popcorn and I get to see explosions and stuff. The flurry of negative reviews led to more than 17,000 people on Wednesday to sign an online change.org petition calling for Rotten Tomatoes to be shut down.
Because it's totally Rotten Tomatoes' fault. All of it is their fault. It can't possibly be because of the movie.
Abdullah Salah, a 22-year-old university student in Alexandria, Egypt, launched the petition telling Reuters he felt there is some pattern for movie critics to give DC Extended Universe movies bad reviews. Okay, first of all,
I gotta bring that up because to my understanding, and we probably need to fact check this, Rotten Tomatoes was founded by Warner Brothers.
I don't know exactly.
I had heard that. I didn't double check it to make sure that was actually true, but from my understanding, they're the people who fucking founded Rotten Tomatoes, so why would they use Rotten Tomatoes to discourage people from going to see their movies?
I thought it was that Rotten Tomatoes was bought by Warner Brothers at some point.
That might be true.
That it was its individual site, and then Warner Brothers spent so much money trying to buy the rights to it.
That might be true. Like I said, I have a very narrow understanding of this, but...
And also, I kind of find it funny that the person complaining about this comes from Egypt, and it's like, how do you even watch movies like this? I guess he's in the United States now, because Suicide Squad would not... Do you think Suicide Squad would be allowed in the Middle East? It'd have to be heavily cut, because, Harley Quinn's outfit would be, deemed inappropriate for Middle Eastern...
And there are a lot of scenes with her butt hanging out.
Yeah, how would you watch that movie?
You would know much better than I would because I don't know what censorship laws are like all over the world.
When I was in Bahrain, you were allowed to have sexy stuff, but there couldn't be sex in the movie. So, the stripper pole scene would have been cut.
Which would have made the movie better anyway.
The part where she licked the cage would have been cut. The part where she changes would have been cut. So
all of this is making a better movie, though. Maybe that's why he likes it so much.
Yeah, and maybe it was cut in the Middle East.
And also, would that mean that the bathtub scene from Batman v Superman would have been cut?
Probably.
Because again, that's another positive change.
I created the petition just to gather DC fans and express their anger just for fun. I didn't mean it to be taken that serious, Salah said.
See, I know it.
He later suspended the petition, saying the only thing that it does is spreading a speech of hate and online fighting.
Good for him.
Yeah, props for you for realizing that, putting change.org petitions only create more problems. Especially when it creates a barrier of free speech.
Well, and also, I get what he's saying, where it's just creating more infighting on the internet for not a real reason.
Yeah, and I get it. People like their little echo chamber of support.
Or they like picking fights with people. I do that sometimes, where I pick fights with people.
And then, of course, there are trolls whose sole purpose is just to piss people off. Suicide Squad showcases a new direction for Warner Brothers' DC superhero universe, which has taken a more dramatic and serious tone in action films such as Batman v Superman Dawn of Justice.
I wouldn't say dramatic and serious. I would say boring and dull.
It is expected to gross $125 million in North America when it opens this weekend, according to box office analysis. Now
I want to see how much it actually made its opening weekend.
Yeah, and we'll be able to find that out this Monday, because I usually like to wait to analyze.
Yeah.
But right now, what do you think? Do you think it's going to make?
From my understanding, it's been doing better than Suicide Squad financially, and better than Ghostbusters.
You mean Batman v Superman?
Yes, that is what I meant. I'm sorry. Yeah, Suicide Squad has been doing better than Batman v Superman and Ghostbusters for an opening weekend. But, like I said, the opening weekend isn't over, so I don't know. There could be another drop-off like both of those movies had. So that was 2 actors.
Yeah. Jared Leto, of course, has been silent because...
he overhyped his shit too much.
Yes, he did.
He really overhyped his shit way too much. I will say one thing I forgot to mention in the review that really slayed me was El Diablo's fire abilities to make words and pictures appear in the air. Like, I kind of thought it was cute in that video where he has, like, a little crown on top, but, like, when he's like, bye. Like, what the fuck is that? Are you kidding me? Even if you theoretically could do that, what kind of a mindset are you in that, like, you think it would be so cool to just be like, bye? Come on, that was super dumb.
Yeah, I was thoroughly disappointed with this movie, partly because this movie didn't have enough Joker, but I'm thankful that it didn't have enough Joker because,
it didn't have enough Joker because there was no Joker.
Yeah, and I do think it's funny that there are people criticizing online and saying like, oh, it was Robin or it was somebody else because like the Joker is so shitty that you can't believe that it's actually the Joker.
Is that actually a thing?
That is a thing.
Oh, wow. That's interesting.
Yeah.
That doesn't even surprise me though.
But let me reiterate. These are our subjective opinions.
And our opinions of older DCU property fans. We're not as much fans of some of the more modern stuff, which is clearly what this is more based off of. Because color scheme aside, this is clearly New 52 Harley Quinn.
Yeah, I mean, we enjoy films differently than, I would say, general audiences do.
Yeah, a lot of people like to get lost in the spectacle, and I like to enjoy the spectacle for everything that it is. Which is, I think that those are both equally valid ways of watching movies, though. I don't think that it's any wronger to watch a movie and not give a shit about how it's made.
Right.
That's actually one of the good qualities about film, is that you can do that. If you watch a play, to a certain extent, you always have to be paying attention to how it's made, because it's all right there. And that's an interesting thing for plays. But that's one of the things that makes the two mediums very, very different.
So let us know in the comments below what you thought of these articles, and also what you thought of
our rambling points about film criticism. We should do like an actual film criticism piece, maybe, when we're not, like one that's a little bit more organized. I think that'd be interesting. Would you guys want to see that?
Well, to be fair, based on my understanding of what you're saying, I have done that with Batman v Superman and Preacher.
I mean, no, about how to criticize film.
Okay.
Like how does one sit down and criticize a film or film as a medium? I think that could be really interesting.
I'll think about it. All right. Well, this is Ren.
This is Casey.
Thanks for listening.